The average first-time home buyer in America is now 40 years old. Not 25, not 30, 40. And nearly 3 in 4 Gen Z renters view renting as a smarter option than buying. Not because they want to, because they've been priced out of the American dream entirely. The starter home, the $150,000 house your parents bought in their 20s, is extinct. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly who killed it, why 70% of Gen Z will be forever renters, and what this means for the future of America. Let's get into it. First, let's talk about how bad this crisis actually is, because the numbers are absolutely devastating. The US is short 4.7 million homes, an all-time high. This deficit drives record-high home prices and pushes the median first-time buyer age to 40. First-time buyers now comprise just 21% of all home purchases, a historic low. That's a 50% drop since 2007. Think about that. Half as many young people can afford to buy their first home compared to just 18 years ago. And here's the crushing reality. 1 in 3 Gen Z adults say that homeownership at any point seems to be financially out of reach. Not delayed, out of reach, period. By 2030, Gen Z is expected to become the largest demographic of renters in America. And according to projections, institutional investors could control 40% of single-family rentals by that same year. We're witnessing the death of homeownership for an entire generation, and it's not an accident. So, what happened? How did we get here? The first problem, we simply haven't built enough homes. Between 2012 and 2022, America saw 6.5 million more households formed than single-family homes built. We've been falling behind for over a decade. Even at record construction levels of about 1.6 million homes per year, we're only keeping up with new household formation plus replacements. The deficit grew by 159,000 homes in 2023 alone, and it gets worse. After the 2008 financial crisis, home construction dropped to a 35-year low. We never recovered. We're still building fewer homes than we need, but why? Because it's expensive. Labor costs are up, material costs are up, financing costs are up, and local zoning laws make it nearly impossible to build affordable starter homes in most cities. Developers don't want to build $200,000 homes. There's no profit margin. They'd rather build $500,000 plus homes for wealthier buyers. So the starter home, the entry point for first-time buyers, has simply disappeared. But it's not just about new construction. It's also about existing homes that aren't coming to market. Here's the problem. 81% of U.S. mortgages have rates below 6%, and 54% of homeowners say no mortgage rate would make them comfortable selling in 2025 and beyond. Think about it. You bought a house in 2020 with a 3% mortgage. Your monthly payment is $1,700. Now, mortgage rates are over 6%. If you sell and buy a similar house, your new payment would be $2,800, almost double for the same house, so nobody's selling. And that means there's almost no inventory for first-time buyers. October 2025 marked 24 consecutive months of year-over-year inventory growth, but we're still about 4% below 2019 levels. Which means, after 2 years of improvement, we're still worse off than we were 6 years ago. This lock-in effect is creating a frozen housing market where the people who own homes are trapped and the people who don't own homes are locked out. Now here's where it gets really dark and controversial. You've probably heard claims that BlackRock is buying up all the houses. That's not entirely accurate, but it's not entirely wrong either. The Urban Institute estimated that as of June 2022, large institutional investors owned roughly 574,000 single-family homes nationwide. That's about 3.8% of all single-family rentals. Nationally, it's small. But here's what matters. In Atlanta, for example, large institutional owners controlled about 25% of single-family rentals in 2022. They're not buying everywhere. They're targeting specific markets, Sunbelt cities, growing metros, places where Gen Z wants to live. And here's the projection that should terrify you. Institutional investors may control 40% of U.S. single-family rental homes by 2030. Let me repeat that. 40% of rental homes could be owned by Wall Street by 2030. Why does this matter? Because these companies have massive advantages over regular buyers. They pay cash. no inspection, 20% over asking price. Over 75% of institutional investor offers are all cash, pricing prospective homeowners out of the real estate market. If you're a seller, who are you choosing? The young couple with a pre-approval letter and inspection contingencies, or the hedge fund with a $2 million cash offer, no strings attached? It's not even a competition. And once these companies own the homes, they rent them back to, you guessed it, Gen Z, at prices that make it impossible to save for a down payment. It's a perfect trap. Let's talk about what this actually means for a Gen Z trying to buy a home. 58.6% of Gen Z renters were rent burdened in 2022, the biggest share among all generations. That means they're spending more than 30% of their income just on rent. With an average individual salary of $33,800 per year, many live paycheck to paycheck. Now let's say you want to buy a home. The median home price in America is over $400,000. You need a 10% down payment. That's $40,000. If you're making $33,800 per year and you're rent burdened, how long does it take to save $40,000? The average American needs more than 8 years to save for a down payment, and that's assuming home prices don't go up in that time. Spoiler, they will. NAR estimates a 10-year delay in homeownership could mean losing about $150,000 in equity on a typical starter home over a lifetime. So you're not just locked out of buying, you're also losing the wealth building that homeownership provides. Your parents built equity. You're building your landlord's equity. But this isn't just an economic problem, it's a social crisis. Homeownership and family formation are deeply intertwined. People often look to buy a home when they're ready to expand their family. If you can't afford a home, you delay marriage, you delay kids, you delay building a life, and that's exactly what's happening. The average age of new mothers in the country has risen from 26.6 in 2016 to 27.5 in 2023. Birth rates are falling, not because Gen Z doesn't want kids, because they can't afford them without a stable home. And here's the darkest part. Fewer young people buying homes could widen the wealth gap between homeowners and renters in the long term. The rich get richer. The renters stay poor. Homeownership used to be the path to middle-class wealth in America. Now it's becoming a privilege reserved for those born into wealth or those lucky enough to buy before the crisis hit. Lack of access to homeownership is pushing some younger people in the most housing-scarce regions to question the viability of the current economic system altogether. Can you blame them? So, what do we do? On a personal level, Gen Z is adapting. Some are compromising, buying smaller homes, moving to cheaper cities, accepting longer commutes. More than half of Gen Zers surveyed say they're willing to make compromises on their home purchase to more easily afford homeownership, such as on the home's price, location, and size. Others are relying on family help. More than 1/3 of Gen Zers who plan to buy a home expect to receive a cash gift from family members to help fund their down payment. But those aren't solutions. Those are survival strategies. The real solutions require systemic change. Build more housing. Streamline zoning laws. Incentivize starter home construction. Tax institutional investors who buy single-family homes. Ban algorithm-driven rent fixing. Increase first-time buyer assistance programs. But here's the problem. None of this is happening fast enough. Meanwhile, Gen Z is getting older. The window to buy a first home is closing, and Wall Street is still buying. Look, here's the harsh reality. The starter home your parents bought for $150,000 in 1995, that same home costs $450,000 today. But your salary hasn't tripled. Your ability to save hasn't tripled. Only the price tripled. There are currently a record 46 million renting households in the United States, as Americans increasingly look at renting as a long-term solution to the housing affordability crisis, rather than a stepping stone to homeownership. This isn't temporary. This is the new normal. Gen Z isn't choosing to rent. They're being forced to rent. By decades of underbuilding, by a locked-up housing market, by institutional investors buying up homes, by a system that's broken. And unless something changes dramatically, 70% of Gen Z will be renters for life. The American dream isn't dead. It's just been priced out of reach for an entire generation. If this video opened your eyes to what's really happening, hit that like button and subscribe. I'm exposing the economic forces reshaping America. No hype, just truth. Drop a comment. Are you Gen Z? Do you think you'll ever own a home? Let's talk about it. Thanks for watching. And remember, you're not failing. The system failed you.